You'll see the first item is appointment of chair for 26-27. Yeah, okay. You'll see the first item is appointment for chair for 26-27. On the attached paperwork, you'll see for 26-27, we're looking at a chair from North West Leicestershire, and yeah, the next item will be vice chair, so we can look at that one. So for 26-27, we're looking for a nomination for a chair from North West Leicestershire. So that's Councillor Lynch proposing, Councillor Woodman. Do we have a seconder, please? Yep, Councillor Hodgkins, lovely, thank you. Okay, Councillor Woodman, over to you then for item 2, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 2, appointment of a vice chair. Do I have a nomination for vice chair? I'll nominate, who was it? It's Hinckley.
I'm just taking the excuses.
I'll second it.
Councillor Lynch, can we just ask you to use the microphone? It's just a button at the bottom. Thank you.
Did you get it?
Great. Item 3. Apologies for absence. Councillor White is in Tunisia, where it's probably cooler than it is here at the moment. I think that's the only one we have.
That's the only one, Chair, thank you.
Okay. Item 4, declarations of interest. Any declarations at all? No. Okay. Item 5, minutes of the previous meeting. I think there's only 2 of us who were there, so I'll second. Then item 6, financial performance. Who's taking that? Ashley.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Yeah, this is the performance for last year, 25-26. You can see from the table under paragraph 3.2, there's an underspend, £126,000. Mainly, we've had some employee vacant posts, which is the main cause of the underspend. I've also included the reserves position in the table under paragraph 3.4. And as you can see, it's now got up to £765,000 that's held in reserve, the partnership. There is a decision to be made as to what will happen with those reserves, but there's, that will be after the restructure order. It's in July to see how that impacts, and then a decision will be made. There is an investment potentially in a GovTech system, which is basically to do with sort of web management and access system processes, and then something will come to members to make a decision on how to move forward with that, and there could be a mix of an investment in that or some return of the reserves, but that's for a future decision. So this report is just to give you the performance for the year, which was an underspend, and then just to point out the level of reserves that we're currently holding. I'm happy to take any questions if anybody's got any.
Any questions? Councillor King.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, so thanks for that, Ashley. Councillor King here. So yeah, I think we're content with that. The only thing I'd say, I think that does need to come to the meeting in September. I think otherwise, once LGR kicks in, we need to make we need to get a decision on this as to what we're doing. Obviously, we can't decide that until we know what's what. But we do need that report. We do need that to come to that meeting and get this sorted out one way or the other. That's
yes, I agree. I think we do need to try and make a decision as soon as possible on this. So hopefully September would be an ideal time to get a report to you to make a decision on that. So that's, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, well, we're going to know which way it's going, aren't we? It's either going to be a 2, a 3, or something else, and then we're going to know who we're working with or not working with, and whether we need to invest, as you say, in some tech, or whether we don't need to invest, in which case we can all take our money and have our money back out of it, which, we will probably need that differentially at different councils. So I think that's where I am with it. But I think we can't really leave it after September, I don't think, because things are going to be moving pretty quickly, I think. after that. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I'm sure our corporate portfolio holder would be very interested in the near £250,000. Okay, any further questions on that item? I'll just ask one question. Obviously, we've had these vacancies which have been showing up for a while. Are they likely to get filled, or is it the same vacancy, or is it people in transition?
I think there's a mix. I know there's been some difficulty with recruiting to some of the posts. Obviously, Sally'd be more aware than me of the team that she has in place, but there are, that question, are there still vacancies and are savings still there? Then it does look like that way. I think if we continue, they'll probably see savings again in 26, 27. It's too early to confirm at what level. But I think that is an observation. We do seem to be struggling to recruit to some of these posts. And so it is a recurring issue. That's why that's a strong contributor to the level of reserves that you can see in this report. So that is another thing that will need to be decided as we go forward and into LGR about those underlying vacancies. But I do know that it is a struggle to fill some of those posts.
Uncertainty at the moment. Everyone wants to ask a question. I've spotted Paul first, so I'll go Paul, Linda and Phil.
To go back to that question then, how are we actually doing the work if we've got all these vacancies?
Obviously, Sally is managing to get things covered. We've used a mix of agency. We've using other people are obviously stepping up to the plate to try and do as much as they can. I know that the system does have some points where it struggles that it could do with some more resources. Obviously, Sally O'Hanlon would have a bit more detail than me on that. But I think it's a mix of those things. People who are there are trying to cover more and take more on their shoulders to cover it, and a few areas where there's struggling, where it would be helpful to have more hands. For example, you might be able to point to recovery or things like that, where you could do with a little bit more in terms of staff coverage. But Sally might be able to give you a fuller answer than that if she's there and wants to make a comment.
Sally.
Thanks, Councillor Woodman. Yeah, as Ashley alluded to, we have got a mixture of, we have some agency staff working with us at the moment. Some of our own staff are also doing overtime. And when we go on to talk about performance, you'll see that there are some targets that haven't been achieved. That isn't necessarily because of these vacancies. We have 2 vacant manager roles at the moment, and we have been out to market and struggled to recruit. Whether that's because of LGR, I don't know, but there is also another piece of work that was going to be commencing. I've just been on a meeting with the 3 chief executives around resourcing and what that looks like. There is a couple of benefit roles in there that it was agreed we wouldn't recruit to because of the transition to universal credit, and we didn't truly know what that meant. But I think, I don't know, because we need to do the piece of work first, but it's quite likely that we are going to need to bolster some support from that area around vulnerability, which we're seeing much more with council taxpayers who are struggling significantly to meet their liabilities. So yeah, that will obviously be another piece of work that comes back to the Joint Committee, but that's being led by the 3 chief executives, and Julie Kenny's also supporting that.
What's Linda, did you want to?
Just a quick one. Thank you, Chair. Ashley, good afternoon. I'm just looking on page 7. Are we covering page 7 in this part? Sorry, it's the first one of these meetings I've been to. And I'm just looking at the lower half, HBBC. We haven't reported any figures apart from on the contributions quarter. We've got nothing for mileage disturbance costs and that.
Hang on. So, page 7. Yes, some of those things, the page 7 that you're looking at, those are timing differences where we're waiting for information. The reason that obviously that I don't have to wait for information is from Hinckley is the systems are there where we're still waiting for some information to be sent over from the other partners. So the information on that table that you're referring to is just some timing difference where we have to make an assessment and then we catch up with the actuals that are coming through. But we're not expecting that to make a significant difference. Obviously, later in the year, I do the very final outturn position. If there is any changes that I need to bring to your attention at the moment, we're not expecting any, but there is that little bit of timing difference that's there, and those are the figures that you can see on that page.
Okay, thanks, Chair. So I've listened very carefully to what's been said, and a couple of things. So first of all, I think if we're carrying vacancies and we're carrying the same vacancies and we're not able to recruit, then, I mean, obviously LGR is a bit of a kind of a fly in the ointment, if I can put it like that, because there will be people probably not seeking to move because there's a degree of uncertainty about whether people are going to get offered a redundancy package or not if they're already in a role, and they may be waiting to see what happens because of that, because obviously a lot of LGR is about stripping out management costs. So that's one thing. Second thing is that get your point, Sally, about supporting vulnerable residents. Not really seeing that coming through in the collection performance, so whether that is having a negative effect, I'm not sure. But the one thing, and I know it's a later report, if I can just link it to, is I was quite surprised to see the very low level, or what I perceive to be low anyway, of fraud sanctions that have been made. And obviously it's quite difficult by itself, and I did discuss this with Sean yesterday, and I know he was feeding back to you, but I think if there's an area we need to invest in, that for me would be an area we ought to be thinking about investing in if we need to, as well as what you said, because, you know, I don't know where we stand in terms of all that, but, you know, unfortunately there are people who are, you know, bending the system, you know, criminally or otherwise, and our job is to protect the taxpayer purse. So I'm, you know, just seems quite remarkably low, and I didn't really want to bring that in, but I think there is unfortunately a link potentially between these two things. So I think we just need to be clear: is, you know, if we are going to invest, what does it look like across the total of everything we're doing, and is, yes, getting people to pay and collecting the money in is the number one thing, but if obviously there are people, you know, doing things they shouldn't be doing and defrauding the system, then are we doing enough there to make sure that, you know, people aren't, you know, there isn't, and I know there isn't wholesale, I know it's always a very small number, but are we confident that we're doing enough and all that we can to protect the taxpayers' purse? That's all I wanted to raise. So they're the kind of, it is related to it, but that's what I wanted to say. Thank you, Chair.
Any response to that at all? Or?
I'll speak about the fraud element when we get into the performance report, if that's okay, but we can certainly commit to pick that up as part of the resourcing work. Yeah, and I've already spoken to Sean about that, but we'll absolutely pick that up. That's not a problem, but I'll go into that in more detail when I do the performance report, if that's okay.
Thanks, Ali. Okay, if that's covered that item off, we will move on to item 7, which is internal audit final report. Who's taking this one?
I can try and cover that. I'm sure that Sally will have some input into it as well, but as it has, we've got, as you can see, it's a substantial opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that our internal audit service give. So overall, that gives a lot of assurance to members that there are no significant issues or weaknesses that the internal auditors wanted to draw to your attention. There are 3 low area recommendations that you can see in the report, but none of those were, as you can tell, none of those were at such a level that the internal auditors had significant concerns. Because they're low risk recommendations, I wasn't going to go into deal with those, but if members have got any questions, I'm sure between me and Sally we'll try and answer those. So that's all I felt I needed to say on that, because it is a very high level of assurance, and so it's a good message for members that the service is then the controls over it are working at a higher level. And as you would expect, we're happy that that's the outcome of this report. Thanks.
Thanks, Ashley. Any questions? No? Okay. Thanks for that. We'll move on to item 8 then, which is the performance report. Sally.
Thanks, Councillor Rodman. Yeah, so before you'll see the performance report for the last financial year for the whole of the partnership for all 3 authorities. If we start off with the benefits side, we managed to achieve all of the targets for processing change of circumstances, which we are seeing a significant amount more now. As you'll be aware, all of the legacy benefits have now migrated onto universal credit, so we see what we call change notices. So they've been achieved on 4 days. None of the 3 authorities, though, did achieve the new claims targets. Bearing in mind, of course, that we only deal now with council tax support and also the complex housing benefit ones, so temporary accommodation, supported exempt accommodation and pensioners. Whilst we didn't achieve the 3 targets for each of our authorities, it should be noted that the DWP target is 23 days for new claims and 9 days for change in circumstances. So our target is quite aspirational in the first instance, but we did miss it slightly. I think it would be also, I think it's also prudent just to let you know that some of the cases that we are seeing now are more complex. We're seeing a lot of providers around supported exempt accommodation, bringing quite large business cases around what support charges should be paid. So that takes quite a lot of work, and then in turn they need to be monitored accordingly. Subsidy, housing benefit subsidy, as you will know, and some of the members of the committee who have been on the committee previously and before know that this is something that's always quite a key focus for the local authorities, because the losses can be quite significant, but there are no issues there, and we remain in a strong position. We saw the introduction, the change to discretionary housing payments and the merger with Household Support Fund to Crisis and Resilience Fund. However, we are only administering the housing payment element. The other 2 elements are being administered by the County Council, and where historically we've the royal way, our authorities had quite an input in the housing and the household support fund. We don't have that now. It's administered totally by the county. We are seeing more demand on that fund though now, as people are experiencing increase in rents and difficulties with budgeting. Moving on to council tax collection, we were slightly out by collection for all 3 of them, for all 3 authorities, I should say. Sorry. We tracked really, really well across the year, but towards the end we experienced some difficulties with collection, and we are seeing more and more people now contacting us with difficulties repaying. So what we try to encourage is that customers contact us as early as possible to support them and to make payment arrangements without the need for recovery action. But we do, of course, have to take recovery action and enforcement action against some. There was an issue with Harborough around posting payments, and if we've included the figures that if they had have been posted in a timely manner, then the target would have been achieved. We've had notification from MHCLG that the consultation that we responded to last summer is now coming into fruition, and there are going to be some changes to council tax in readiness for the next billing period and then for the following one, which potentially will have quite a significant effect on local authorities, because we aren't going to be able to commence recovery as early as we had done previously. So not only will that mean that customers will see their annual bill still with an arrear on if they haven't paid their March instalment, it's expected that it'll have an impact on cash flow as well for each of our authorities. And also, if we can't recover as early as we could do previously, then that's going to have an impact as well. and whilst the intention, this was from you've probably seen it, a pledge for a bit of a promotion from Martin Lewis. The first rule of credit and recovery is to try to engage with people as early as possible while the debt is manageable. The longer it goes on, the harder it becomes, and the deeper people will bury their head in the sand. So moving on to business rates, we have had some difficulties in collection. Northwest Leicestershire, because of one of the assessments that we're waiting for clarification around a relief that we should award, which is quite significant. Anna and I have been, and Alison has been in discussions with this, and so that will be progressing now, either with or without. But that is the sole reason that we haven't been able to achieve target. Just moving on to business rates as well, a bit wider. We, as you all know, we saw the removal of the retail, hospitality and leisure relief from this year, and the introduction of 5 new business rates multipliers, as well as a new valuation list. That has been a particularly difficult time for the team. We didn't have the software in time. Bills went out though, but what we've seen is that has created a significant amount of inquiries from customers and also support with repayment. Annual billing went ahead as expected and rebuild. So whilst all targets weren't met, I think it's worth noting that the performance has remained good, and we do. There are areas that we could do more, particularly with regard to high-level recovery. But these are particularly complex cases that we're dealing with. Fraud. Whilst I know, Councillor King, you said that that the output wasn't perhaps as you'd like to see. I'm not convinced that the amount of prosecutions that we take is necessarily the most effective measure. It's about actually having those, having the infrastructure in place for people to have awareness that we will investigate, we will take action, and we have various different methods of getting information. I spoke to Sean only yesterday in the management board, and I've committed to bring back further detail about the work that we undertake linked to fraud, which is of course council tax support. The DWP deal with housing benefit, but maybe prudent if we bring it back to this committee as well, more detail about the work that's ongoing, and of those investigations, how many didn't actually progress because either it wasn't founded or for another reason. So happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Sally. Any questions? Yes, Paul first.
Thank you. It's only a small point, and I should have pointed this out before the meeting, but on page 27, well, my page 27, the figures for March are blocked off. I can't read them. Has anybody else got the same issue?
Just bear with me a second, if you would, please.
I'm not favouring the point. I mean, if you can send me a copy on, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And
Yeah.
I think I said at the beginning that I drove down here with the aircon on. I've sat in here since 2 o'clock, and my contact lenses just about dried out. So small figures aren't the best at the moment.
That was it. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, Phil.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So look, I've been on this before. I've been through quite a lot of these things before. I think there's a couple of things, and I think overall performance is certainly satisfactory. I think it's a couple of things, and I take your point, Sally, is that we don't necessarily want to don't want to prosecute people unnecessarily, but we need to understand: are we, what's our benchmarking against others? Are we looking at a lot of cases, and actually we can only find a very small number that we can prosecute on, because actually everyone is playing by the rules, and there aren't lots of people doing things they shouldn't be doing, which is great, because that's good news, and that's excellent. But if we're not doing an awful lot, so this is why we need to understand a bit more under the hood, so to speak. The thing that I do think is quite important to get a handle on, and we do need to understand moving into LGR, is there is a lot of arrears. And we need to understand what's going on with the arrears position, and what work we're doing to collect in that money, because it's millions and millions of pounds. I know it's a complicated process, I know all that, but you know, it's quite hard from these numbers to actually get an understanding of what the total arrears is. And you know, because if we go to LGR, what happens to the arrears? Does that then go to the successor council if they actually, you know, once vesting day comes and goes, and you know, just, you know, each individual council is abolished? Does it then go to the successor council in that area? What if it's a split council, has a split personality in the new landscape? I mean, you know, what happens to the arrears? So I think there's some really important questions that we will need to answer fairly shortly about what is going to happen to some of these funds, but equally, what are we doing in the meantime to really get that money in before we have to get into more complicated scenarios, which I'm sure none of us really want to see happen. So that was what I wanted to say, and I do think it is really important for us to understand the scale of what's actually outstanding, and what's actually being done. I'm not, you know, so I don't want to dwell on that now, but I think at a future meeting we ought to have a full report on the arrears position and what cumulatively what's actually outstanding and where, so we can get a handle on that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I made a note to, we'll cover that in the forward plan. But,
Yeah, I was just going to pick up on a couple, if I may, Chair, a couple of Councillor King's points. So just going back to the fraud element, happy to bring forward, if we include that in the forward plan as well, I'm happy to bring something back, but just to give you a bit of assurance, there's also an initiative going on from the DWP called the Housing Benefit Accuracy Initiative. So we review claims to make sure, and basically it's almost going back to the olden days where we did regular reviews. So there's that element. We also have the NFI data matching, which we always subscribe to, and we deal with all of the cases that come back from there. So that will take, and Ashley will probably bail me out here, but I know we send council tax data, we send benefits data, I believe we send payroll data and others as well, but I'm hoping Ashley will be able to help me on that. And so that is all data matched, and it's thrown back in to say, okay. And then with the other one, yeah, happy to bring a report back about the breakdown and the age data of the arrears. It's not a problem.
Yeah, thanks, Sally. And that's why I think it's really important that we do have a proper look at it specifically, so we all understand, because it's quite hard to keep up with some of this sometimes. Thank you.
and so, any other comment? Okay, we will move on to item 9, performance indicators. Is this you again, Sally?
Yeah, it is. Thank you. And it's just bear with Rebecca's kindly given me a paper copy because of my yeah. So this is just around the performance indicators for the coming year. These have all been reviewed by our management board and are in agreement with the changes that are being proposed. And really, it's around looking at our outturn, what's best practice across Shire districts, and also looking at what other authorities are doing. So I'm looking for approval for the performance indicators as detailed in the report, please.
Yes, Phil.
Yeah, I'd like to make a, I think this is the right part. Yeah, so in terms of the council tax collection targets, we'd like to make a proposal that the Harborough target becomes 98.5 for council tax collection instead of 98.1. That's an obscure figure anyway, but 98.5 we're quite happy to have a bit of a stretch target to try and get towards that. It has previously been higher than that in the past, so I think it's, we see where we get to with that. That's the proposal. Thank you. Otherwise, I'm happy with everything else. Thank you.
Okay, do we need to do any voting or anything on this? Okay.
Proposer and seconder, please, Chair.
Okay, can I have a proposer? Seconder.
Happy to second.
Okay, all in favour? Against? Good. Carried. Matt? Yeah. Okay, is that everything covered on item 9? Excellent. Okay, item 10, schedule of meetings. Our magical mystery tour around the county. So our next one, 24th of September, will be in Hinckley. And then 3 more to follow. Do we have to vote on that, or is that just...
Just as long as everybody's happy, Chair.
Yeah, everyone happy?
Thank you.
Is that at the council offices or at the hub?
At the hub.
The hub.
Hinckley hub.
Right, okay, that's great, thank you.
And Stenson House in Colville in November. What better place to be? Okay, and then next item is forward plan. So for September, we only had financial performance report and performance report, but obviously we've got recovery, arrears and fraud. I think we'd like to discuss. Anything further? Nope. Okay. I'm sure that. So, and of course, we'll have the. Well, hopefully, we'll have the LGR outcome. So, I'm sure that will enter into discussions. Yeah.
Would that be on the forward plan then for September? Because I would have thought we would need to bring a report, if we can, to that meet, or certainly an update.
Yeah, we're looking for a report, aren't we, for September?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else on forward plan? No, okay, I will declare the meeting closed though. Thanks for everyone for attending.